Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my photo editing live stream where you can submit your photos before the stream starts, and I edit them here for you live using DxO Photolab 9. And as always, this is not a critique or any kind of contest. It's basically to show you the tools in DxO Photolab 9 using your photos rather than my cherry-picked ones, right? And if you have any questions, usually every 2 or 3 images, I like to pause and answer any questions I see in the chat, specifically, you know, related to any of the tools I may have used or any decisions I made. But I try to think out loud and give you an idea of my workflow. And my workflow is pretty consistent. I try to look at the overall image for its composition, if I have to straighten any lines or do any cropping. These are all subjective decisions, of course, and then also white balance and exposure. So I kind of look at the overall geometry and lighting of the scene, and I do that first, and then I start usually just to go right into local adjustments and using some of the tools like control points and uh, uh, gradients of different kinds and some color adjustments. So with that said, I see, let's see, Bamsim is here and Paul, good to see you guys, and Mr. Steel Curtain. Oh, that's a new one, or Corton from Florida. That's awesome. I wonder if you know another viewer down there, Marcia, by any chance. And Larry's here, Roger's here. Walter, hey, good morning, Walter. And sent a photo in just before I started, so this week or next week. Okay, maybe I got it. I'm not sure. We'll see. But that said, let's go ahead and get into the editing. And I need to make just a slight adjustment to my screen so the fonts are a little bit larger. So it's just a little easier to see what I'm doing. Okay, that should do it. And let me know the audio and video is okay. Everything looks good here on my end, but you never know. I still need to get a new router though. Man, this router is really spotty sometimes. So hopefully the video quality is good. All right, and let me go to the folder that has your images that I downloaded earlier. Okay. Awesome, we're almost there. And Henning came in, and John follows. Good to see you guys. And thank you for the audio check. And there was another viewer named Anthony who sent me some images to edit, but they were all JPEG, and he said he wanted to send the RAW. So if you're watching, if I have time, if you guys submit anything new while I'm doing the stream, I'll try and do those. Otherwise, we'll have to do it next week. All right. Looks like I got this going. I got my thing. All right, very good. Oh, thanks, Walter, for the video check. And we'll start here with one, looks like from Larry. Oh, that's cool. A couple of cardinals here. This is the male, that's the female here on the right. Looks like they're kissing. But anyhow, so like I said, the exposure, the geometry all looks good. And really all I have to do is I'm going to apply one of my basic standard presets. They're available on my website if you want to use them, but they apply optical corrections, noise reduction, and a little bit of sharpening. And I tune these, of course, specifically for my cameras like the OM3, Micro Four Thirds, and the OM1. They work perfectly, and they seem to work pretty universally across all cameras, regardless of sensor. But keep that in mind. If you do download the presets, that's how I tune them, and but they should still work fine for yours. So doing that, we'll go to Apply Preset, and I'll just go with the regular standard default in this case. I may have to tweak that extra sharp a little bit. It's maybe a little bit too crispy. But I'm just going to look in here. Let's try the extra sharp. Actually, that looks pretty good for this one. Okay, and then I may crop just a little bit. I think the geometry's fine, but let me try a little tighter crop just right in here so we can see exactly what's going on. And maybe get a little less. Try and get maybe the entire cardinal on the left. No, maybe a more centered crop right in here. And then I try to balance, you know, the negative space on the top and bottom and around the sides. It's a little bit heavy on the right side, so that's why I was kind of thinking I could move over just a bit. But let's go with that. And it's a little bit flat in terms of contrast, so I may just go with let me try smart lighting, which just balances the exposure a little bit. And then let's add maybe just a little bit of more regular contrast. And I'm going to push the highlights a bit, midtones, tiny bit in the shadows. Okay, now let's add a little bit of color. Just to give it a little more pop. And the background is really, really flat. I wonder if I can maybe I may shift the exposure and or the tint of the background. So what I'll have to do is separate the cardinals because I want to make the light a little bit more directional because they're in the shade here. So let's go over here to our AI tool. I doubt it'll select the birds right off the bat, but let's try it. Did a good job. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert this. And then I'm going to diffuse it a bit. And then let's just bring the exposure down like so. Now I'll adjust the diffusion. Yeah, let's not do too much there. Okay, and I'm just going to get a quick look at before and after. Okay, that's good. Oops. Didn't want to do that. I'm going to make a new mask. And I'm just going to duplicate the mask I just created. I'm going to move it up here. I'm going to try to move it up here. Okay. We'll invert it back. And I'm just going to brighten the birds just a bit more. Now I want a little more contrast on this bird, so let me make a new mask. I'll select this bird. And I just want that bird to be, just have a bit more contrast. Diffuse that a bit. Okay. Let's just light paint just a tiny bit with some control points. Maybe, actually, let me try brush. And I got my flow and opacity way down because I don't want to I don't want it to be too dramatic. I'm just going to brush a little bit here. And let's just push the highlights and the midtones just along. Okay, I'm going to increase the opacity a bit. So I just want the light to be a little bit more contrasty. Okay. Then there's a little bit of a spot in here that got missed by the AI. Just going to darken that a bit. I hate to do this, but this composition is just not working for me. Let me try a 5x4 and maybe a vertical. Oh, I like that better. Okay. It was just too heavy on the right side, but this I think balances a little better. Let's try a square crop. Something like that. Okay. I think we'll call it there. So we'll do a side by side. And I'm going to compare it against the original with no geometry connections. And I'm going to hit the F9 key to push the panels over. So here's the original on the left, and here's my edit here on the right. And I think yeah, I think that works pretty well. Because to me, the most interesting part is right here where their beaks are. So that's where I went, and then I just added a tiny bit more light. I probably should have done one more thing on the brush. Let me just add a little bit of warmth here. Because typically when I add light to a scene, I like to warm it up too, wherever I added light. So there you have it. Okay, very good. And then let me just answer Walter's question real quick, because I know sometimes you can't stay very long. Yeah, so I selected the subject and inverted because I wanted to select the birds, right? Sometimes when I do select background, it's not quite as, I don't know, the precision is not quite as good as when you select the subject. So I tend to select the subject first, and then I created that second layer, and rather than do select subject again, because it may select slightly different, because remember this is AI working in real time, I wanted to make sure I had the same exact mask that I used in the first layer. So I just duplicated that, then inverted it back to the normal so that I could get a seamless mask between the two. But yeah, when I select background, I've noticed time to time it selects too much or too little. But when I do select subject, it does a little better job for whatever reason. Okay, let's go to the next one. And then yeah, backing off the halo, I thought it looked okay. At least to my eyes here. There's a little bit of haloing here. I could have backed off the diffusion a bit, but usually what I do is I'll export it and look at the final export, and then if I need to make tweaks to the diffusion or anything else, that's when I tend to do it, is after I've exported it, and looked at it in the final result, because in the export it converts to JPEG, which is an 8-bit file, and sometimes you lose a little bit of fidelity in the gradations when you do that, and that's when the haloing can even show even more. But what I'm previewing here is on my monitor, which is using the wider I forget what it's called, P3 gamut or whatever, and I'm actually working in the DxO color gamut, so I'm getting maximum color fidelity. So I may not see the gradations here the same as when I export it. So that's why I do it in that order. I export and then look at the gradations, and then I might have to go back and work with the diffusion a bit more. But I do the best I can while I'm editing. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is a JPEG. So my flexibility here is going to be a little bit limited to colors and exposure, but everything is already really good as it is. So I think all I have to really do is focus in on the composition a bit, specifically the geometry. The horizon looks just a little bit off to me. But I'm going to apply the same basic preset, and I'm just going to use my default here. And it's going to have very, very little effect because it's not going to apply noise reduction. It's only going to apply some optical corrections, if any. Most of the optical corrections are usually done in camera a lot of times when you're working with a JPEG anyway. So very little needs to be done by DxO. But sometimes I do see a slight correction in the optical correction on JPEGs, but in this case I don't see any. Okay, so let's go over here to the geometry panel, and I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm just going to tilt it left. And you'll notice that I'm not getting, I don't have to crop in unless I turn this off. Then you can see, so when I have the auto based on keystoning, it's going to automatically crop the image for me, okay? Okay, maybe just a tiny bit more. Since I don't really have a straight line to help me with the horizon, I'm just using the way this person is standing here so that looks right. So it doesn't look like they're leaning over a bit. I think that looks about right. Now, I may want to crop just a tiny bit to sort of balance, because there's a lot of negative space over here. And there's a hose line here, and there's a little bit of a line coming up this way. Maybe a bit too much sky. So if I come in just a bit and just get a little bit more to the left, maybe even, let me try a 3x2. Well, I'm already at 3x2, so let's try 16:9. And then I'm just going to try and balance this in terms of depth also. So in the foreground, in the lower thirds, here in the middle, I have the water stream, and then in the background, I have mostly the sky. And there's a little bit of a spray or something over here. I don't want to cut off too much of the person's foot. So actually I may come down to about here. And that feels just a little bit better to me. I'll see if I can add just a little more drama to the sky. I'll just use a control line. And you'll notice I moved the dropper from here up to here. So this is masking based on color and luminance. And I can control that here with the chroma and luminance sliders. But 50-50 usually works pretty well. So let's just add a little bit of clear view. Maybe desaturate a tiny bit because it's just a little bit too rich for my blood here. And then let's try some regular contrast and some micro contrast. All right, I'm just going to light paint just a tiny bit. Let's try a brush, make a new mask. Oh, let's do 25, 25. And there's just a tiny bit of rainbow right in here. So what I'm going to do is just crank up the vibrancy. Let's see if that did anything. Hardly did anything. Let's try saturation. Okay, good. I'm just going to brush a little more in. Maybe one more. Okay. All right. Ooh, it's a bit strong. I'll just back it off a little bit. And let me brush in, make a new mask. I'm going to just brush in a little bit more contrast in here. Let me push the highlights a bit. Whoops, that's not highlight. I meant highlights. A little bit on the midtones. And some micro contrast. Just a little bit of light over here. Okay, good. And let me just brighten up that person. Let's see how good it does select people. Oh, not bad. That's pretty solid. All right. Just going to give them a little bit more. And let's make a new mask. Let me go back to my brush. And I'm just going to darken a little bit in here just to create a little bit of depth. So we'll pull the blacks and shadows, midtones, maybe even just do a global pull. And let's brush in a little bit more. Bit here. Just trying to create a little bit of a layering effect. Okay, we'll call it there. So my F9 key. And, excuse me, here's the original on the left. Make sure I'm comparing it. Yep, no corrections. So the straight out of camera JPEGs, typically they already have a lot of processing done to them. And, you know, Nikon does a good job. I think this was a Nikon. I can't remember. But most cameras have a pretty good JPEG output. This is the classic D7500 DSLR, and I think a little bit, I think I need to do just a little bit more. The sky's just a little bit too muted now. So let me go back to that and just bring a little bit back in. Maybe shift it slightly. And then let's go to the oranges and shift those. And the green's a little greener. And then a drop, just a drop of light here. Okay. Anyway, you get the idea. Yeah, just a little bit tighter in. That's really all I needed. And then just some adding a little bit of layering here in the foreground. I don't know if a slider would make any sense. But there you go. Okay. Let's look at the next one here. And all right, this one here, Sigma 24 1.8. That's an interesting lens. I'm not familiar with that one. I wonder if this was an adapted lens or something. No, it's it's got the exit data right here, so that's a lens I've not seen before. So let's apply a basic preset or a default preset, and I'm going to try, let me try the perspective here. No, that's not doing it. I need to just straighten it a tiny bit. There is some slight, well, the camera seems to be kind of tilted up this way a little bit. So what I might do, let me reset this. So I'm resetting the auto correction by clicking this button, and then I'm just going to manually draw it in. And then correct it. There, that feels right. Okay. Composition wise, it's a very tight crop already. So I wonder, and it's a really bright day, midday sun. So what happens is, the hats make these very strong shadows, or makes everyone's faces darker, but then the guy not wearing a hat is much brighter, so you have this contrast. Let me try and, I need to really temper the street though, it's way too bright. let me try the AI tool. Yeah, AI tool's pretty good. Missed a little bit here. It's a little bit in here behind these people. I'll just do that with a brush or something. Because it doesn't look like I can get right in there. Well, yeah, a little bit. I'm gonna add a sub mask and just get right in here. All right, good enough. So we'll just pull that in a bit, like so. Let me try and cool it, maybe. It's a bit too much. About there, but then we'll do globally. Let me pull the exposure down a tiny bit. Okay. And then let's go back to the local adjustments. We'll make a new mask. Let's select the sky. Just add some clear view in there. Some micro contrast and contrast. Give it a little bit of vibrancy. Okay. And then this building is also a little bit hot. So we'll just grab parts of that. Okay, we're almost there. Now what I'm gonna do is just let me show the mask. Let me see. Just the people that have their faces a little bit too dark. Oh crap, I didn't make a new mask. Hold on. This is the one. 9, 8. Shoot. All right, new mask. And then we'll just grab just some of the darker faces. And let's just brighten those up a bit. Oh, let me turn the masking off. Okay. Okay. That's better. All right, let me select. Let's try the AI thing again. It's working pretty good today. I mean, it usually does, but you know how it is. Let's give a little more vibrancy in here. I'm just kind of comparing a little bit. see if there's anything else I want to do. So, you know, this for event type photography, typically I like to focus on just a couple of the people, but then when you do these wider shots, you want to try to get everybody in, um, and make everybody look as good as they can, right? It's easier to do when you only have like one or two people in the shot. It's a little harder to do when you have a group. But you have to do group shots in event photography just like this all the time. Okay, I think that's it. So, there's the original. The sun is so bright that I think maybe just a little bit of clear view globally. See what smart lighting does. Yeah, that's not what I want. Just a tiny bit of clear view. Maybe a little bit extra micro contrast. Okay. So very slight crop when I did the perspective correction. Let me make sure I selected that without geometry. So hopefully you can kind of see the difference in the perspective, right? It looks a little bit more level or straight on. It looks like you had the camera pretty level, like on the horizon side, like, but the camera was kind of tilted back a tiny bit. So I tried to correct for that just a tiny bit. And you can see it in the pole here. This pole is angled pretty hard down this way. And then the building over here is straight. This line is pretty straight. So it feels like it tilted in a little bit and then a little bit off to the right, but that's how it's composed. So, okay. Pretty straightforward. All right. Thank you, Andrew, for sending that. And let's see what we have here. We have a seascape. So definitely a horizon correction. And this is a high-res shot mode. So I can apply my high-res shot mode preset. So again, this preset's available on my website, the high-res pre-shot here. High-res shot mode, I'm sorry. So I'm going to apply that. And this is tuned specifically for high-res shot mode in our OM system and Olympus cameras. So let me just straighten the horizon. I wonder if the auto will detect this at all. Not really. Auto never works. I always eyeball this. And then when it does work, you know, I'm not so sure sometimes, right? So I'm just eyeballing it, but there is a tool here. But because landscapes don't typically have, you know, when they have landmass like this, I don't really know if that's going to be the right angle or not. But it looks like it is in this case, because in a three-dimensional world, right, some landmass is closer, some landmass is a little further away. And when they're both in the same picture, it can be difficult to use this line tool to try to level the horizon. Unless you have your camera perfectly parallel with the ground, right? Because then you get some very, very minor parallax type, not parallax, but you get very, very minor skewing on a horizontal plane versus the vertical, right? Or reverse. Sorry. Okay, anyway, that looks pretty good. That seemed to work okay. But just be aware of that. It's not so obvious in this picture because the horizon is so far away. All right, so we have some colors in the sky here. I can see some mild like magenta purple kind of colors in here. we're going to do a little white balance correction. So I'm going to make an assumption here that this rock is gray down here. So I'm going to drop just a white balance correction there. Okay, I think that works. Let me zoom in here. Maybe select this part. Yeah, that's good. So if you look over here, we're now at 11,300 on the white balance with a little shift to green versus the original was at 6,300. So it's very, very cool. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that same thing down here. And just select that. Okay. That looks mildly better. Now, this 4:3 crop works pretty well as is, but let me just explore a bit. Because landscape shots, I have a bias towards really super wide. Let's start with something modest. Oh no, let's try 13:19. No, I'm sorry, not 13:19. A 65:24. And see what that gets us. Yeah, right about here. Kind of like that. I need a little bit more of the foreground though. Just to finish this little curve here. Okay. That looks good to me. I'm just going to click on smart lighting and see what it thinks. Yeah, it's not doing much. So let's just do our local adjustments. So I want to brighten up the foreground and maybe darken the water and the sky, and then brighten up the details here in the this little mountain or cliff. So let me pull in the sky just a bit. I'm going to come up here. Oh, I got to figure out how to turn off the show mask thing. I don't know why that's not letting me select. I have to figure that out. All right. Oh, now some colors are starting to come out. It's a little bit too bright on this left side for me to... Let me try gradient this way. I'm going to select sort of the brighter areas and just bring that down a bit. Okay. It's a bit too much. Right there. Maybe even add a little bit of warmth to that side. This is annoying. Why can't I unselect this? I have to... I'm going to have to figure that out. I don't know why. All right. So Heather, you run into that a lot too, huh? I know, right? I'll figure that out. Maybe it's a glitch, but I think it's a workflow issue that needs to be uh, a little bit more intuitive, because as it is, it's not very intuitive how to turn that mask back off. But okay, let's go to this side. Let's add a little bit of a gradient on this side, but just more on the sky. And I'm going to throw a little more magenta back into this with some micro contrast. Oh, there it is. Ha! Okay, Heather, watch this. When I have the mask selected and I click Show Mask, now it's working, right? But if it's grayed out, just click on this to turn that mask kind of off, and then you can turn the mask off. I think that'll work. We'll try it again. If it happens again, we'll try that same process. All right, let's work on the water just a bit. So let's make a new mask for the water. Let's try the AI tool. Okay, very good. And I'm going to add some clear view on that. Maybe some micro contrast. And let's give the water just a little bit more sheen to it. Okay, good. Now, let's work on the foreground a bit. I wonder if I can... let me try coming up. No, it doesn't want to grab. It doesn't want to grab it. So let's do it this way. Okay, I'm going to try background. No, yeah, see, when I select background, I just selected everything. So I'm not a big fan. All right, never mind. Let's just use control points. So like I said, the control points can mask by color and luminance, right? So that's why it's only selecting land, because the land is much darker and doesn't have as much color as the water. And I can tighten this up a bit. Let me tighten it up on the chroma basis. And that's pretty good mask right there. Just tighten them up a bit. Okay. And let's brighten it up this way. And, you know, the reason I typically use selective tone to brighten and darken things rather than the exposure is exposure does things in a very linear way, which is fine. But when I do it with the selective tone, I like to, it automatically adds a little bit of an S-curve to the histogram, I guess. And I just feel like it looks a little better when I do it this way. And if I need to, I can always go back. If I don't get exactly what I want, I can always go back and push the linear exposure up this way, which I might do just a little bit there. And then let's add some clear view, maybe a little micro contrast, a little bit more warmth. Because again, whenever I add light, I typically like to add a little warmth. and tiny bit of vibrant. I like the little red streaks down here, so I'm going to just select the red channel. See if I can bring those out more. So we'll spread that out just a little. And just brighten those a tiny bit. Okay. And then I'm just going to just brush a little bit. Let me make a new mask. So right now it's grayed out. So I'm going to, if I hit M like Walter was saying, it's not, I'm not getting anything. So I'm going to select this. It didn't work that time. It worked last time. What if I select the brush? I have no idea. I'll figure it out. Could be a bug. I don't know. Now it's off. That's weird. I think I have to make an adjustment in addition to... I'll figure it out. We'll come back to it at the end here, but I'm just going to add a little bit more light in here. And then we'll spot check a couple of rocks. I'm going to add a little bit along the horizon. I'm sorry, not horizon, but the shore edge here. Just give it a tiny bit more separation. So let's push the highlights. It's a little bit too much here, so I'm going to do a little negative. So I hit the Alt key to kind of just subtract the mask a little bit. Okay. All right. So overall, it feels pretty good. Let's try a little bit of clear view with a brush here. Maybe some micro contrast. Let me see if I can get it to just stand out a bit more. All right, and maybe a tiny bit of warmth there. And I'm going to brush just a little bit more here. All right, let's call it. So there's the before. So, I mean, the main problem with that image on the left is primarily the white balance. It's just way too cool. And then I just brightened it up with a crop. And I think the crop works. I really like this contrast between the grassy area and the rock. This entire foreground, there's a composition down here somewhere too. But it didn't just quite work with all of this going on up here. So I think that worked out pretty well. So there's my final edit. I think that looks pretty good. All right, let's go to the next one. And let's apply Let's do a default preset. It looks like a rooster or something. I don't know what that is. I think it's a rooster. So we need to brighten up the front of the rooster a bit so you can see him a little better. And everything else looks pretty good. Composition wise, I like this tree. But I don't like this rock. I mean, I like the rock. If this were vertical, this adds a little bit of layering, but I like the depth of this image here. Let me try. Oh, that looks awful. Okay. I think that'll work. I'm kind of missing the tree though. But I like the foreground. Let's try 3x2. I don't think 3x2 works. It kind of works, but not really. Whoops, my bad. I meant to do that. I think I'll go with a 16:9. There's just a little bit too much space between the tree and the rooster. So I really like to see more details in the rooster. All right. I'm going to work with this composition for a little while. But I need to... Let me select this rooster real quick. I don't think this is going to be the right approach. Okay, that's not bad. Okay. Let me see what happens if I auto mask this. So I'm using the auto mask brush this time. And I'm just going to exaggerate this area. Give it some warmth. Like that. How about that tree? No, let's not do that. All right. Then let's use a regular brush, maybe. No, let's use a control point. And I'm going to do a very tight luma mask. I'm just selecting sort of the darker points in the woods here. Okay. Clearly that's too much. Back these off. Let me try a different way. Yeah, no, a little bit negative. Okay. Then let's try to add a little bit to the mist here. And just do a very, very tight. Did I not make? Yeah, sorry. This one I have to get rid of. I have to make a new mask. Select that. Come in very tight. What? What am I doing wrong here? There we go. All right, that's good. And I'm just going to spot check a little bit of light. So let's make a new mask. Just a couple of places in the tree there. Oops, not that. Add a little bit of warmth. Maybe just a little bit here. Okay. All right. Call it there. So yeah, really nice image. Basically, I just had to crop and do a little bit of contrast, and then just make these areas a little brighter in the foreground. I think I could have done a little bit more. Just again to try to emphasize the depth a little bit. And I love the lighting up here in the trees. So this original composition is not bad as it is. Probably a little nicer instead of me cropping in like this. Let's try 4:3. I mean, that works pretty well too. I just wish that tree was closer, but you don't always get what you want. But okay, very nice. Let's go to the next one. And actually, let me just double check the chat section here. Google says M to show and hide the mask. Yeah, I tried M and Shift M, and I don't think it's. I think when the mask is grayed out in the tool, hitting M and Shift M is also deactivated. Yeah, maybe you guys are related. I wondered that myself sometimes because Walter's a good friend of mine here locally. Gosh, we've known each other since college. And then Bamsem says, can't you invert the grab like in Lightroom? Not sure exactly what you mean. I can invert any mask, so I would assume that answers the question, but I'm not sure exactly. Let's see. Nice job with the seascape. Oh, thank you, Paul. And it's under morning blue hour. Yes. So you can leave it original, right? If that's how it looked to your naked eye and you're more of a realist, you know, then don't change the white balance. Leave it the way it was. I guess it was on this one, right? If I put the white balance back to as shot, that's just as valid as what I did, right? Which was this. I just made it warmer slightly. If I were to put the white balance back to the original, I would probably just do a little bit more de-emphasis on the blue, like that, something like that. But anyhow, and dramatic difference on the water. Yep, I thought so. And it's a pheasant. Okay, it's a pheasant. Looks, I don't know. I don't know my animals that well, but thank you for that. It's a pheasant standing. And entry. Oh, hey, Eric, how are you? Good to see you. And Walter, thank you. You like that edit. That's cool. That's very flattering when it comes from you. Thank you. And then since about 1992, yes, we've known each other a while. Okay, let's go over here to our ducks. So EM53 with a 14 to 150. Nice. Very nice. Let's do an extra sharp on this one. And oh, you can see the little duck's feet through the water. That's cool. I think we just need to center the composition just a little bit. Maybe even switch to vertical and that might do it. Try a 5x4. Try square. And just come in a little bit tighter. Let's go back to 4x3. I guess that works. Okay. And yep, just a good motion blur on the wings. I like that. All we have to do really here is, let's just add a little bit to the eye. So I'm going to brighten that, throw some clear view back in, some micro contrast. So we're good there. Right there. I'm going to add a tiny bit of warmth maybe. And just let's do some vibrancy. Okay. Maybe it's a bit too much. It's too much on the eye. All right, let me go back to this mask. It's a little bit too big. Okay, good. And I'm going to add a little bit more light to the front. I can just do a masking brush. Get this off the eye. Okay. Yep, perfect. Let me just brighten up this area here. We'll try the masking brush again. A bit there. Make a new mask on this. Okay. All right, let's new mask for the water. And just throw some clear view in. And just pull it in just a bit. And whenever I work with selective tone, I forgot to mention this, I always like to make this line as straight as possible. I think that makes the most natural look. I mean, of course, you can get creative and do anything you want there, but that's generally how I like to do it. I just need a little bit of clear view. Yeah, not too much, just something right about there. I'm going to add a little warmth globally to the image. Actually, let me try the eyedropper down here on a whitish part of the feather. No. I think I'll just do it manually. Right there. All right. So here's the original on the left. Great capture. Just a little bit off center, but what are you going to do, right? At least you got the whole bird in the frame. That'll let you, adjust the crop slightly. And then I didn't want to mess with the wings too much, so I left them as is because I just wanted to show the motion blur. But then everything else is nice and tack sharp. All I really had to do is just fix the eye a little bit and then darken the water. So we can do a slider just to kind of demonstrate the difference here. This is the main difference between the original, right? A little bit soft, but the optical corrections and noise reduction just cleaned that up really nicely and brought out a lot of the detail. Like especially down in here, you can see a pretty big difference on the feathers. All right, very good. Let's go to the next one here. This one is from Heather. Okay. Ah, this is a beautiful composition. I feel like everything is right here. We don't really need any of this on the left. So let me just apply default preset, and then I'm gonna do, maybe let's try 5x4. Something like that. So you were at 158 millimeters with the one, oh geez, you had your you had the big white out for this shot. Okay. I think the horizon is slightly off. Let's, maybe not. No, I guess it's okay. I think all I have to do is maybe just separate the water a little bit. Ooh, no, no, no. The problem is the foreground is not blending with it. So, okay, that's what I need to do. So you see how the trees just look out of place here because there's a lot of flare from the sun. So what I'm going to need to do is just add some more there. Okay, I'm gonna have to do those separate. So I'm just gonna undo all that. So I have my original AO mask. Maybe diffuse it a bit. No, let's do it this way. So I'm gonna duplicate this. Let's move that in there. Let's invert it. I don't know. Okay, that's better. Okay, let me go back to the water. I need the water to be bluer. Okay. All right. It's not going to work. Let me just brush in here. That's not what I expected. Okay, that's better. Did it look like? Yeah, it's kind of this orangey blue. I just wanted a little more blue. And then you just add that back in. Maybe, yeah, that looks more natural. I think I'll do it this way. Oops. All right. That's good enough. Okay, so I just went for a little simpler composition of just the sun and those two trees kind of framing it. Rather than, this to me is a little bit chaotic over here on the right. And then the colors, because there's so much glare coming in through the, because you're shooting straight into the sun, and the lens is doing a good job mitigating a lot of that flare or glaring, but it just can't be helped with such as big a lens as that is. You know, and all of the glass inside, you're just going to get glaring like this. So the best way to temper that is with the clear view and crushing the blacks down to black like I did with the trees here. And then I just wanted to bring out the blue in the water. So that's kind of a quick and dirty way to do it. I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but that's the way I usually do it. All right, very nice. Let's go to the next one here from Gary. So we have another landscape with some fog. And I'm going to apply just a standard preset here. And right away, I feel like I can do, at the very least, a 16:9. Let's just go with that. And the white balance looks good. The horizon looks good. Let's select the water. Just make that look a little bit glossy. Don't think I need. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a sublayer or a submask here and a brush, but I'm going to use a negative brush. And let me drop the flow. Let me do this, because I'm losing a little bit of the fog that's right in here. I want to keep that. Okay. Good. Maybe a slight horizon correction. It's a little bit tilted right, it feels like. I should have done that first, but I'll just do it now. Okay. Now let's make these reds a little bit more red. See if there's anything in the sky. So select that. Oh, there's a little bit in there. Getting a little bit too much. Maybe about there. Want a little bit more. Just going to do a control line for these clouds. I don't want to make this fog that's kind of drifting up here any darker. But I do want to get just a little more detail on the clouds up there. There we go. Add a submask. We'll just use a brush just to fill that in. Let me try that again. Submask, brush. It's not acting really like a submask, but I guess. Stop it. It's a little bit glitchy today. This should be painting in. Because if I Fine, we'll do it manually. What am I doing wrong here? This control line is just contrast, right? And then this. I'm not sure why. What am I doing wrong? There we go. Jeez. I'm not sure why that didn't work. I'm gonna have to always something to learn here. I got to figure out what the workflow was that got me exactly what I wanted. Normally that's how that goes. AI mask plus a little brushing. But all right, let me go over here to the global colors. Let's go ahead and push sort of these red oranges. Maybe let's try auto masking brush. And just add some micro contrast in there. And then we'll spot check a couple of areas here. A little tighter on the chroma. And just a couple of spots of light. Might be better is the auto masking brush. Okay. Can just come back. And let's do a new mask. I'm just gonna brush. Oh, hold on. Okay. Go back here. No, let's do it this way. All right, let's call it there. Yeah, so primarily a crop and then adding a little contrast, right? And I think that looks pretty good. I should have added a little warmth here in the foreground. That's all this needs. This mask right here. We'll just add about 500 or 600 Kelvin. Okay. There we go. So that's the before. That's the before, right? Without the crop. And that's with the crop. And I think that looks pretty good. I just like wide crops. What can I say? All right. Let's do some flowers here. And okay, so I think this might be a good candidate to try something like a black background. Oh, you know, on this one here, who's this, Gary? I forgot to download the optics module. I mean, the image is really sharp already, but I should have done this. Because I just noticed I have to do it over here too. So that did make a little bit of difference. Probably not enough that you can tell on the screen other than a little bit of distortion. But there you have it. Okay. So this one here, this might be tough, but I'm going to try. Let me do an extra sharp on this one. And then I wonder if I do select background. Yeah, that select background just never works. Sometimes just a pointer tool works. But we can just do a black background. And there's a little bit of a bright spot there. I'll just have to brush that separately. Maybe just do this. Or, yeah. Okay, now, actually, let me delete this mask. Let me go back to the original select background and just do that. That works. Okay. And then we can make a new mask. Let's duplicate that, move it up, invert it. And this just needs a little bit more, yeah, just a little more saturation. Maybe a little warmth. Some clear view. Okay, and a slight crop. Okay, I think that's it. So yeah, just black background. Pretty straightforward. The yeah, like I said, the select background tool needs a little work, the AI part, but the pointer tool in the AI selected the background like that. So again, it's just reinforcing what I was saying earlier, that my experience with the select background hasn't been stellar. All right, maybe a split view. I think that works. All right, let's do some ducks here. Look at this guy. I love that. He's being playful. Okay, so let's download the mask. Or I'm sorry, the optics module. Oh, the G9 Mark II. Nice. So you're gonna put that big white on a Panasonic lens? That's blasphemy. But okay. This automatically, I know, is needs to be. There's the mother's beak over here, I assume. Let's just balance out this just a little bit. And let's select the water. Actually, the water is a little bit too cool. No, let me do it this way. Oh, they're geese. Okay, thanks. And thank you, Shri. I appreciate that. I try. Maybe a slight horizon correction. Oops. Just slight. Okay. I invert that. What I'd like to do here is just give these guys a little more punch. And then let's light up their eyes a bit. And since the eyes are already pretty well illuminated, I might just go a little bit wider. Let's just do a simple linear push. I just want the face to be a little bit brighter. A little more clear view, maybe a tiny bit of vibrancy there. Okay. I'd like to just get in, try 3x2. Wonder if I can. Okay. And just a little bit more light here in the front. And I'm just pointing to the brighter parts. A little bit tighter on the luminancy, and then let's just make the reflection stand out a bit. Okay. So here's the original, uncropped, unedited, to a crop and edit. So I really wanted you to be able to see what's going on there. That is an awesome shot. And we can pixel peep a little bit just to see the difference. You know, like just around the eyes, right? Like I'm looking at it right here, and then we'll look over here. I always like if whether it's people or animals, I like the face to be a little bit brighter. So I didn't have to do too much on the eye directly, just in that general area. Just making everything a little brighter here and there. Like that. And that's the final edit. Whew, okay, very good. So we'll go back to the chat. Let me see. And I see, oh, any sunspots? I have no idea. I seriously doubt there would be any. I think you're just kidding, right, on that question. And thanks, Rob. Was doing a similar crop. Oh, sorry, I was looking at Heather's sun shot there. I was doing a similar crop. Thanks, Paul. I have a bunch of the sun at different positions, lower, so those two branches are actually holding the sun. Yep. And you need to download for this. You need to download for this foggy pick. Oh, yeah. Sorry I missed that. I did see it later. So on this image here, I forgot to download the optics module, but I did get around to it. And the glowing tree was created in previous adjustment. I wonder what you're referring to there. I'm not sure. Oh, while I was editing. So I did something in the edit that made the trees glow even more. Hopefully I corrected that. And Walter says, superb edit of the lake scene. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And kudos to all the photographers who submitted these files. Yeah, a lot of nice images this week, as they are every week, I think. Also, I do get a few difficult ones. And Rob's doing them. Thank you. Amazing edit of the mountain fog. Thank you, Shri. And these were Egyptian geese goslings. I have been using my G9 II quite a bit recently. I like a shot with a bit of humor. Yeah, that's always fun. So we're talking about this image here, right? And I've sent my edit in. Oh, okay, yeah, let's see what you guys brought in. So, as always, while I'm editing, if you have your edit done, like if you did your edit before I did mine, we can compare what yours was versus what I did. So let me see. Oh, wow. It's beautiful. Let me so this is Paul's edit. Very nice job. Very nice. for once we didn't have like an identical edit. A lot of times when we edit, I look at Paul's edits, they're so similar to mine, almost indistinguishable sometimes. But this time, very, very nice. I like how you, with the colors, this very teal color in the water, I think is a really nice touch. Similar crop, almost identical crop, right? We both did 16:9, but I think he did a good job there. As we compare that to my edit, I think I went maybe too dark on the water. Excuse me. And I didn't emphasize the teal in the water. I like how you did that on yours. I like your edit better. I still might darken the water just a tiny bit more, but and mine's a lot warmer too, right, on the white balance. But yeah, very nice edit, Paul. I think ultimately, though, I think you win this one. Okay. And then I thought I saw this one here. I think that's the only new one. So I'll edit this one if you're here. Where's the... Oh, that's last week. I gotta delete those. Save. Okay. All right, we'll do one more. Looks like some egrets. Cool. So let's apply a standard. Well, let's try extra sharp on this one. And maybe a vertical crop with a little straightening. I think I'm trying too hard to get this one. Let's just do this. Just a slight tilt this way. And then let's just drop some control points. Tighten up the Luma mask a bit. And then let's pull in a little bit there. Let's get the water. Maybe I shouldn't be making the water so dark anymore. I've just gotten so used to doing that. Okay. And let me brush in. Just come down a little bit. Okay. What I'm thinking about is just trying to make the grass a little bit greener and the leaves. So let me select the greens and I'm going to push into the orange a little bit. Okay. Since I'm only pushing sort of this greens and yellows, it shouldn't be affecting anything else. And that's really the only other color in here. Okay, let's see if I can. Let me see where we're at here. So I think this image should be soft because we're not close enough to the birds to get any feather detail, but we can definitely see there's egrets in here and that, you know, that there are birds there. But all these little tiny branches and fine blades of grass are just making things a bit too crispy. So if I turn off this or set it to 0, turn this off. And let's go to micro contrast. I feel like this is the way to go. And then I need to go back to the color. What did I do over here? If I reset that. I need it to be warmer. Okay. And I'm kind of making it a little more surreal than an actual real image. I'm gonna go back to the water. I just like dark water. Okay, I'm gonna stop fighting it. I like the water dark. Even though Paul's edit of the ducks was nice with the lighter water, I'm just, I wonder if I can get in here and just, let's use a brush. Okay, let me just warm it up a little bit more. And then let's add a vignette. Just a little off center. Start from the bottom end. And let's cool that off a bit. Still not sure. Okay. Ultimately, I think we're just too far away. Meaning the birds are just a little bit too small in the frame. And cropping in, it doesn't seem to help. Okay, gonna do one more thing. So let's try this. That, okay, what was I thinking? Yeah, let's invert that. There we go. And then I just have to fix a little bit of the, oops. Okay, get rid of that. This brush. And that vignette is not right. Okay, and then my colors, where's my color? This one, right? All right, I'm gonna call it there. So I just decided to go a little bit more on the surreal side and make the image kind of soft rather than trying to bring in any kind of details. Because the details typically is going to be on your subject, right? The birds or tree. But in this case, the trees are not the subject, it's the birds. And I can't pull in any details. And I probably clipped all of the highlights on the bird, which is okay because the shape still kind of stands out. And then adding some depth with, you know, darkening the backgrounds here just in a few spots, just to give the image some depth, right? And I think the square crop kind of works. It's possible there's another composition here because I do like this tree and the way this extends all the way out. So a wider crop is possible. I just don't know if I went 16:9 instead. And then got rid of that vignette. Where'd that vignette go? So that's another option, right? Because I like the vertical tree on the left and the one leaning all the way out to the right with that one bird on the end. That's another way to go. All right, awesome. So I think go to the chat section. Let's see. Paul says, thanks. It's not a competition. I just like to see other ideas. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know. I know you're not trying to compete with me. I was just kind of kidding around when I said you win. I just mean I liked your edit better. And then the JPEG of the OM1 is black. In fact, it was the beginning of the night. Oh, okay. Interesting. So, you know, you mean this JPEG was black? I'm not following you. What you mean by the JPEG? But anywho, Rob, do you use Nik Collection? Is it worth it? And Heather likes the square crop. So coming back to Nik Collection, what is that? Like an extra $100? I think for $100. Let me see what it costs right now. I mean, short answer is yes. For around $100, I think it's worth it. What are they asking for? 179. So 180 bucks. Okay. I don't know why I was thinking the upgrade price, but because I've been I haven't had the upgrade or anything in a couple of years because they just send it to me now. So what does Nik Collection do? I guess is basically it has a bunch of art filters, right? Or creative filters. And some film simulations, and they're all really nice, and there's a lot of controls there. It also has the silver effects, so if you like to do black and white photography, silver effects is ideal for editing black and white photography because you get a lot of control over the sensitivity to the different colors in the image when it's being converted to black and white. And then I really like the HDR module of Nik Collection. I do use that quite a bit. So I use the HDR module. I don't use the Silver Vex too much because I think you can do most of that in DxO. But if you are a black and white photographer kind of enthusiast, you'll really appreciate what Silver Effects can do. And then the art filters, time to time, not so much. The art filters and the creative filters, I should call them, and the film simulations, time to time. The latest version added some AI tools for masking and stuff. I haven't really played with it, the newest one, the new tools in the new one, but I think if you do a lot of HDR, let me just pull up. Let's just pull up Nik Collection for like just a regular image. Like this is a pretty cool. Well, that's a JPEG. let's pull it up. And well, we'll do, there's some other tools in there that are really useful. So I would say if you do HDR, if you're a black and white enthusiast, definitely it's worth the upgrade just for those two things. The other modules like the analog color effects that I'm about to pull up, if you're the creative type and you like doing double exposures or adding blur, swirly effects, there's a lot of creative tools in the Nik analog effects, you know, toy camera. If you really like doing a lot of this stuff too, so for example, I like the double exposure module. And then I'll select something like this or like this. You know, you can add some really creative things to your photo. Or if you want to make these look vintage, the photo plate ones are really nice. So there's a, you know, there's hundreds of presets in this thing. And I've used these maybe in 5% of all my photos, but when I do, I really like it. So this for me, this module here, I use about 5%. And then the Viveza had a couple of things in it that I've used before, but I don't anymore. But the HDR effects, oh, this is going to carry these edits. Let me cancel this. Let's just open this up in HDR. Now I'm not bringing in 3 bracketed shots, right? I'm just bringing in a single image. But let me show you something I like to use on. It's not really the thing I like to use wouldn't be good on this particular image, but just for consistency. I really like this. I like these dramatics and sinister special effects. There's a lot of really cool filters in the HDR module, and you don't have to. I'm not sharing it all. I'm so sorry. So I'll start over, but I'll go a little faster. So this is a single image with no bracketing, right? And you know, I like some of the art filters in the Nik's HDR module. These creative filters. Sinister is one of my favorites. Dramatic is one of my favorites. And then what I was showing before is the Nik analog effects. So we'll do this. The Nik analog effects, I like the double exposure one. So we'll bring that up. Man, I'm so sorry about not sharing. Okay, so I like this. This can just add some nice creative effects to your images very quickly. And I've used these time to time. You know, some of these are more appropriate than others, right? But I've gotten some pretty cool images using these filters. And then the photo plate can make a nice vintage look to your images very quickly. And there's film simulations and things in here too, right? The motion one is a little trickier to work with. This is better for like if you have moving cars and trains and things like that. You can add some really interesting moving effects to that. As you can see here, right, this adds motion blur in different ways. Or you can get kind of a vortex. I actually use a real lens filter to do this effect, but you can just do it in post-processing like this. And there's so many tools over here for making other adjustments directly. And it can be argued that you can use Nik Collection to edit your photos if you don't need to do noise reduction. And you can just edit all your photos directly in Nik Collection because it has all the tools you would need to edit. I forget which tool it is. Color effects, silver effects, all of these tools can be used. There's just no noise reduction, but you can edit all your photos from scratch because it has all the same sliders, brightness, contrast, things like that. The only thing Nik Collection does not do is crop. Okay, so when you bring a photo in to Nik Collection, it needs to be already cropped. All the geometry needs to be done because Nik Collection doesn't really do any geometric changes. So I would say I use the analog effects 5%. I use the HDR effects probably 20-30%. Well, more like 80% of all my true HDR images where I blend things. You know, I bracket exposures. I really like the HDR. And I also like just bringing in regular, just single images and using some of the creative filters they have that are different than what I can get in analog effects. The silver effects, again, is pretty awesome if you're a black and white enthusiast. And then there's the Viveza and color effects. Those are more useful for really if you're really very sensitive about color. You can make some very fine adjustments and selective adjustments color-wise. Particularly if you need to match colors, if you need to match colors between images, it's really good for that. I've only done that once or twice early on. I thought it was pretty cool, but ultimately, because I was trying to use it for my architectural real estate photography, ultimately it just wasn't worth exporting into TIFF and bringing, you know what I mean? Because I have to deliver, say, 20-25 images. I didn't want to create 25 TIFFs to edit in Nik color effects just to make a very, very, very minor change in the color. So for me, it didn't work workflow-wise. It didn't work. But if you're just working with individual images, the color effects and the other tool there is pretty effective at dealing with the color in the image. So yeah, 179. I'd wait for a sale. I mean, you can get 15% off, I think, with my coupon. You can try it. You should be able to get 15% off. So that'll save you another 20 bucks, right? But what are we in? We're in, if you can wait till Black Friday sale, that's when I would get it. If, unless you're going to use those other features a lot, the HDR and the silver effects, or any of the other tools that I showed there. Okay, Larry, sorry, that was kind of a long explanation, but hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps. 180 bucks it's pretty good by itself. Like if that was the only thing you were going to use, it makes a lot of sense. I forget if you mentioned that if you were using it with Lightroom, or because it has great integration with Lightroom and Photoshop. If you're using DxO Photolab, that equation changes a little bit, right? They have deals where you can combine Nik Collection and Photolab together, and it's cheaper than buying it separately like you're doing now. That would be the way to get it. Otherwise, I would wait for a sale. Or if you're using Lightroom or Photoshop, it's probably worth it to get the Nik Collection for those specific features. Although, Lightroom and Photoshop have their own HDR modules, so you're going to have to probably look at more at the silver effects and the analog for all of the creative filters, because Lightroom and Photoshop don't have a ton of, that it comes with. But anyway, I try not to overthink it. If you think you're going to use it, you should get it. You have DxO, so then the equation becomes, right, how much you're going to really use silver effects, unless you're a hardcore, black and white enthusiast. But you'll definitely use the HDR and the analog effects. Those would probably be the two. Those are the two that I use mainly. Like 5% of my images, I might use the analog effects when I'm feeling kind of creative. And then if I'm doing an HDR, I would say 80% of my HDRs I use the Nik Collection. Sometimes I'll use the Lightroom Photoshop HDR just for workflow convenience. But if it's a single image, I'll use the HDR in Nik Collection. So if you already have DxO, it's a little tougher call. I would you have to think hard. I mean, download a trial and see. You can always download the 10 or 15-day trial and see. But I like it. I like it, but I got it for free, so it's hard for me to say I don't like it, right? Because I don't have any skin in the game, so to speak, other than I have used it professionally time to time. All right, so I think that's it. Heather says, my photo group did a discussion on AI for critiquing photos. You need to say what kind of critique, like comp, marketing, or posing. It will also give you a stepped instruction for editing. Oh, interesting. Rob, on the duck photo, it looks like they glued his head on the back of his body with some Elmer's glue. Okay. That's funny, but I can see that looking at it now. And yeah, free is always good, right? Shri got a free copy, I remember. Because once in a while, they'll give me a license that I can give away. I'll have to ask her for another set. I'm trying to think if I have any licenses left. I might have one, not for Nik Collection, though. I have to look around. But we'll see. But yeah, 180 bucks, give or take the coupon. It's a little tougher call because you already just dropped probably $200 on DxO, right? But okay, you guys, I think that's it. So you guys have a great weekend. Have a great day. Eat healthy, exercise. I will be back Sunday for normal photo chat live stream. And I want to see you guys all there. Okay, so thanks for joining me today. You guys are awesome. Thanks for letting me edit your photo.